Some cows ought to be around for many years because they earn that. Good genetics and good management supports that, and they can and should stick around for many lactations. But at the end of the day, it's a cow by cow decision. Yes, it's complicated, and yet managers do this every day, every week, hopefully informed by data more so than gut feel. But that's the key. It's not that we should have the notion that a lower cull rate is just inherently better, that an older cow is just always an inherently better, and so on. That's the healthy debate that I think we need to have, and there's still a bit of work to be done there.
Hello, good day, and welcome to the Dairy Podcast Blackbelt Podcast. I'm Mark Thomas, and connecting here from Dairy Health. As you might see from the background, if you've got video on, I'm sitting in my truck because I am doing some dairy visits, but have the great opportunity today to introduce a good friend and colleague, Dr. Stephen LeBlanc from Guelph. Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Hey, Mark. I'm good. It's nice to speak with you.
Excellent. So as we get started here, Dr. LeBlanc is the Director of Dairy at University of Guelph in Canada, and very well recognized for his research and work in many different areas of dairy, but especially transition cow health and lots of practical management applications. So it's great to have Stephen with us today. As we get right into things, Stephen, the topic today is longevity, and there's been some controversy, if you will, in the industry and publications and presentations. Even a Discover conference centered around this. With some vocal individuals on both sides of the argument, if you will. So, give us some background of your interest in this area, and I'll say take it away. Tell us about longevity.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I think you're exactly right that there's some controversy, or at least differences of perspective around longevity. I think I'll lay out as briefly as I can a couple of principles, and I think this is why I hope there's a healthy debate around this. But in different parts of our industry, globally, different countries, within countries, programs that put it out that things would be better if cows stuck around longer, almost as a principle, as a starting point, that it would be desirable for welfare, desirable for economic reasons if we could keep cows around longer as a principle. And fundamentally, I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's supported by the data. So it's a bit of a on the one hand, on the other hand. On the one hand, if management's not good, if we don't feed our cows well, manage them well, particularly manage their health through the transition period, then that will certainly contribute, if not even directly cause, cows to not stick around as long as would be their economically optimal amount of time to do that. So that's true. However, the flip side is not so true, that it would be a good idea to use longevity, meaning what's the average lifespan of a cow in a herd, what's the average age of a cow at culling, or even what's annual herd culling rate or herd turnover, to use any of those things as metrics for whether cow welfare is good, cow health is good, and so on. That is a big pitfall that I think we need to avoid. And so, sometimes people say, well, what's the optimal culling rate? And wouldn't it be better if a herd's culling rate were 25 instead of 30, or 30 instead of 40? And the answer, like with so many things, is not necessarily. It depends, because you think about why is a herd's culling rate high? Well, it's possible that that's because they're not managing to support cows through transition and prevent mastitis and prevent lameness. And so their churn is truly more than is economically optimal. So that may be true, but there's so many other moving parts. You're sometimes cow health, welfare, and performance would be better if turnover were higher, if heifers are available to do that. And our industry is doing a massive, somewhat unintentional natural experiment about that in the last few years when, with the price of dairy beef calves, at least in parts of the industry, the supply of dairy heifers has not been what people would like it to be. And so we're keeping cows, at least some farms are keeping cows longer than they optimally should. And so, longevity is going up, but that sure doesn't imply that welfare somehow got better, health got better. None of those things are true. And yet sometimes people say, well, yes, but we should, measure the proportion of old cows or how many lactations a cow has before she's culled as being indicative of health or welfare or performance. And that's really my key point, is that we need to be thoughtful about that.
𝗦𝗽liche turns podcast airtime into brand authority. We don't sell ads, we elevate voices. Curious how far your voice can go to become a reference in the industry and attract more leads? Scan the QR code and discover how we can turn your expertise into unmatched brand authority. Let's transform expertise into influence, starting now.
So, Stephen, the argument that we often hear and is that, okay, with each lactation, these cows are producing more milk, and therefore our oldest cows or greater lactation cows produce more milk. And yes, we know there's some increase in lactational milk production from first lactation to second, but also what a lot of people fail to recognize is we are obviously selecting cows, the highest production cows in most herds that end up staying. So could you dig into that a little bit? That, it's like saying that cows with longer voluntary wait periods are more fertile, but if you throw milk production in there, the same thing, where we have this bias. It's not a randomized controlled trial. It's an evaluation of what is occurring naturally, biologically. So explain a little bit of that, because I'm sure many of our listeners are thinking, well, those are our highest producing cows. Why do we want to get rid of them?
Yeah, and so a couple things. It's not that we necessarily want to get rid of them, but rather, I guess, maybe three key things. Culling should be an individual a cow-by-cow decision, and what's optimal for one cow is not what's optimal for another cow. And for sure, that's predicated on having heifers available that to make truly selective, strategic replacement decisions. So it's not that old is bad. It's not that old is good. Rather, a little bit like the professional athlete analogy, as long as cows are performing well and earning their place in the herd and keeping them is the better decision than replacing them. Yeah, there are cows that can and should stick around for many lactations because that's the most profitable decision to make. There are other cows that should be replaced very soon. Some of them even in their first lactation, or after 2 or after 3. But the whole point is it depends. It's not that it's inherently the case that older cows are better or more profitable. Some of them are, and some of them aren't, and that's the key. What you were alluding to before is the technical term is survivorship bias. We can only measure we can only manage what we can measure, and we can only measure what's there, right? We only measure milk production on the cows that are in the herd. The cows that got culled in their first or their second lactation, we don't have their milk production in the third lactation, duh. Now, did that cow leave because she got mastitis and we couldn't fix her because we couldn't get her pregnant? Economically, that's different, that, she would have, could have, should have stayed, but we failed to optimize her lifespan because of a health problem, say. But that's not the same thing as saying that, if we could just have a herd full of really old cows, they would all be sort of maximizing production, and that would be so much better than if we have, take your pick, 30 or 35 or 40% 2-year-olds in the herd. And again, that's the key. So that's inherent to dairy, because farmers make sensible decisions every day about which cows stay and which cows go. And there are a lot of things that go into that. But the key is the only ones we get production data on are the ones who stick around. Hopefully, mostly that's the cows that rightly stick around because they've earned, if you will, the right to stick around. And the biggest single way they do that is by making lots of milk and getting pregnant. Those are kind of the two critical pieces. So, and then the last piece that is not the same, but it's related, is this notion that, heifers are expensive. They're really expensive right now. And, that if we've got if each heifer that calves into the herd is sort of carrying a bill, a cost of several $1,000s, $3,000-$4,000 more these days, that she has to pay that off, right? That she's not really actually making you money till she's paid all that off and is now in the black, so to speak. And I mean, that's not narrowly, that's not wrong, but as a decision for when to cull animals, that's absolutely wrong. It's a sunk cost. If a heifer merits sticking around for many lactations, but we can't do that because she gets mastitis or we can't get her in calf, yeah, that's an economic loss. But that is not the same thing as saying we ought to keep every animal around for 3 or 4 or 5 lactations so that we pay off that, dilute the investment, the fixed cost, the upfront cost of getting her into the herd. I mean, yes, to a point that's desirable, but that is absolutely not a reason to keep an animal around or to have as a starting point that we want to just drive our culling rate down because somehow that would drive our profitability up. Not necessarily.
I really like the professional athlete analogy. If you're a good performer, you stick around. If not, you leave. And don't break cows, obviously. We need to have great transitions, etc. But if you're not performing, there's no reason to stick around just to have a cull rate that meets some benchmark criteria.
Yeah, just so. That's exactly it. I think that's the key. Yes, some cows ought to be around for many years because they earn that. Good genetics and good management supports that, and they can and should stick around for many lactations. But at the end of the day, it's a cow by cow decision. Yes, it's complicated, and yet managers do this every day, every week, hopefully informed by data more so than gut feel. But that's the key. It's not that we should have, the notion that, a lower cull rate is just inherently better, that an older cow is just always an inherently better, and so on. That's the healthy debate that I think we need to have. And there's still a bit of work to be done there.
Great, Stephen. Well, lots of food for thought today for our listeners. Thank you for joining. Again, Dr. Stephen LeBlanc from the University of Guelph, Director of Dairy. Stay warm up there north. My colleagues just left Mexico and they're heading back into northern New York. And I saw the snowfall and the minus 27, minus 30 predictions. So
yep.
Stay warm there.
Will do.
So this is Mark Thomas from Dairy Health. Thanks for joining the Dairy Blackbelt Podcast. And we look forward to connecting again soon. Take care.